Alara saved a young boy's life. 10 years later, she became that boy's wife in name only. After the classic case of mistaken identity, her tyrant husband showered his cousin with affection, then turned around and had Alara executed for adultery. But this was all just a story in a novel. Still, the tragic death of the side character, Alara, had her weeping. It made her sigh. If I were Alara, I would divorce that tyrant Kaelin in a heartbeat. She never expected that the very next second, she'd wake up in the novel's world as 5-year-old Alara. It was an age where she was completely powerless, but somehow, she still ended up tangled with the male lead in this life too. Soon it was Alara's 5th birthday party. As the star of the show, she was dressed beautifully. A clear preview of the stunning woman she would become. It was hard to imagine how Kaelin could have been so cruel to a face like hers. Looking at the room piled high with exquisite gifts, Alara couldn't help but burst into tears of gratitude. As an orphan in her past life, she'd never received a single birthday present, let alone such thoughtfully chosen ones. Since I'm enjoying the love meant for the original Alara, she thought, I have to protect her family in her place. Soon enough, her family of 3 made their grand entrance. This was Alara's first public appearance, and being stared at by so many people made her so nervous she started hiccuping. But with her mother's gentle comfort and her father's warm presence, she managed to get through the opening dance. Just then, Count Valerius arrived with his son Kaelin. To avoid her fiancé from the original story and escape her terrible fate, Alara slipped away unnoticed and climbed a tree in the courtyard to admire the view. But she got a little too cocky, the branch snapped, and she fell straight down right into Kaelin's arms, wanting to get away as fast as possible. Alara muttered a quick thanks and hurried off. Kaelin was left completely baffled by her obvious desire to have nothing to do with him. After leaving, Alara accidentally bumped into another boy. With his fluffy pink hair and cherubic face, he was cute enough to make your heart melt. Just as the boy reached out to grab a giant snail, Alara sharply stopped him. She recognized it as a giant African snail. Highly destructive and infectious, it had no business being here. As she was about to tell an adult, a wad of mud splattered onto her hand. Hey, short stack, get over here and bow to your big brothers. The 2 troublemakers were her cousins from her uncle Luther's side, Matthias and Orion. Both were bad news, and in the original story, they were eventually beheaded by Kaelin for their crimes. After throwing mud at the pink-haired boy who stood in front of Alara, they laughed cruelly. The new Alara wasn't having it. She grabbed the snail with a leaf and chucked it at them, sending them screaming for their mom. Her bravery made the pink-haired boy's eyes sparkle. He copied her, jumping in front of Alara to block a slap aimed at her. Alara immediately joined the fight. Scared he was losing, the boy started crying for his dad. Hearing the commotion, a man rushed over and was furious to see his son hurt. It was only then that Alara realized the boy was Liam, the beloved only son of Duke Astor. He was the original Alara's secret crush for years, the white moonlight of her life, who was tragically killed by Kaelin. Her 2 cousins immediately started playing the victim, blaming Alara for everything. Thankfully, Liam stepped up and explained they had been bullying him, and Alara only scared them with the snail to help. The furious Duke Astor instantly decided to switch his fabric business partner. I will not do business with anyone who bullies my son. The boy was crying over a minor scrape, but the girl hadn't made a sound despite a dislocated bone, even smiling to comfort him. This instantly turned the second male lead, Liam, into her #1 fan. He ignored his own injuries and insisted on staying as a guest. The doting Duke Astor naturally agreed, thanking Alara and inviting her to join them for dinner. In the original novel, Alara and Liam spent their school days together, but she was too shy to ever confess her feelings. She ended up just watching him enter a political marriage with Princess Helena, her secret love dying with a whimper. If she had just been a little braver, would the ending have been different? From that day on, the 2 became best friends and inseparable playmates. Alara felt she had successfully distanced herself from the tyrant male lead, and was one step closer to the peaceful life she wanted. Little did she know, her entanglement with her future tyrant husband had only just begun. Meanwhile, Luther was raging about losing the fabric business, taking his anger out on his wife, Liliana. He only stopped when Count Valerius arrived with Kaelin. Their daughter Odette, heartbroken to see her mother suffering, urged her to ask her own brother for help. But the love-struck Liliana couldn't imagine leaving her husband. She even poisoned her daughter's mind with ideas that studying is useless. Marrying a good man is all that matters, pointing to Kaelin as a prime example. Later, when Kaelin spotted the bruises on Odette, Liliana covered for her husband, even using her sibling bond as leverage, to ask her brother to help Luther's business. The 2 kids later found themselves in the estate's greenhouse. Looking at the vibrant, meticulously cared-for flowers, Kaelin shrewdly noted that his uncle didn't seem to care for his wife or daughter at all. After all, both of them loved the pure white magnolias from the northern tundra. It turned out that because Odette was a girl, she was disliked by her father. Even though she had a talent for business, he had warned her, "Touch those account books again and I'll break your legs." Kaylin gave her a magnolia. "You have to fight for what you want," he told her. "When you're truly strong, you'll have the power to speak." His words changed Odette's destiny, and from that moment, their lives became intertwined. The next day, they visited some ancient ruins. Originally built by King Andros for his beloved queen, the site was later destroyed by rebels. But you could still see its former grandeur. Kaylin, however, preferred the vast open tundra of his homeland. Just then, he noticed Alara nearby, taking a trusting leap of faith into Liam's arms. Kaylin couldn't help but walk over. "It's been a while, Lady Alara." After introductions, Alara realized that the second female lead, Odette, and the male lead, Kaylin, had already connected this early. She definitely needed to stay out of their way. But while she wanted to leave, the puppy dog like Liam wanted to see the main hall, forcing her to be a third wheel. Suddenly, a small green snake shot out of the grass, heading straight for Odette. Kaylin quickly jumped in front of her and was bitten. Dark blood immediately started oozing from the wound. Alara knew the snake was venomous. They were in a remote area. A doctor would never make it in time. Alara took charge. She ordered Odette to get help and Liam to fetch clean water. Then, to the boy's astonishment, she leaned down and began sucking the venom from the wound. By the time the doctor arrived, he found that thanks to the prompt and correct treatment, Kaylin had only a small amount of residual poison in his system and would be fine after a few days of rest. "Thank you," Kaylin said. "I didn't know you knew how to do that." Alara's heart sank. She had sworn to stay away from them, but she couldn't stop herself from intervening. She had to be less impulsive in the future. The day after she returned home, she noticed something was wrong. Her father had a severe cough and a high fever. In the original story, her father died from coughing up blood due to poisoning. Was it happening earlier this time? At her insistence, her father got a checkup. The diagnosis was shocking, a completely unknown infectious disease. The doctor recommended quarantining everyone who had been in contact to prevent it from spreading. Alara knew that even with modern medicine, curing an unknown disease was incredibly difficult. Here, with their limited medical knowledge, was her father doomed? A few days later, Liam begged his father to let him visit his friend Alara. But because the epidemic at the duchy was worsening to the point that even doctors were afraid to go, Duke Astor firmly refused. So Liam wrapped himself in some bandages and snuck over to the ducal estate. Luckily, he ran right into Alara. "Don't be scared," he said. "I don't know how to cure sickness, but I asked the sprites to look after you." He explained an old imperial legend. A doll made with a sincere heart would attract a sprite to live inside it and grant the maker's wish. Alara was touched by his pure friendship. The next moment, Kaylin arrived with a Dr. Alistair. It turned out Kaylin had pleaded with his father, and the Count, feeling indebted for his son's life being saved, agreed to send the doctor. It was a lifeline for the duchy. Alara realized the boy wasn't so bad after all. "Thank you," she said. "Your leg hasn't even healed yet. You should go back and rest." Liam tried to sneak in to help, but Duke Astor had already caught up to him. The most important thing now was to find the source of the infection. They heard her uncle's 2 troublemaker sons were also sick. Then, Dr. Alistair accidentally stepped on a giant African snail, and Alara had a realization. Maybe this was the culprit behind the whole epidemic. A few days and hundreds of experiments later, Alara and Dr. Alistair finally created an antidote. She immediately gave it to her father, and just as she'd hoped, he made a swift recovery. The crisis at the duchy was over. Now it was time to find the mastermind. Normally, only the procurement staff or high-ranking servants would have the opportunity to poison them. She got the entry and exit logs for the past month from the guards, and found unhatched snail eggs. But just then a figure appeared behind her, ready to attack. In the nick of time, Kaylin appeared and wounded the attacker with his sword, but the culprit managed to escape. Alara had an idea. She gathered all the servants and told them about the attack, lying that the sword was coated with a special poison that would kill the attacker by nightfall without an antidote. However, if the person confessed, she might show mercy. A red-haired maid panicked and ran to her co-conspirator for the antidote, only to have him grab her by the neck, ready to silence her forever. But at that moment, the Duke appeared with his men. The maid, Martha, the Duchess's personal attendant, tried to appeal to their history. Her brother was in debt, and a man had offered her a large sum of money to release the snails. The Duke instantly recognized the man as Tristan, his brother Luther's trusted butler, whose hometown was known for producing these snails. "Why would you do this? Did my brother Luther put you up to it?" The man insisted he acted alone, claiming he did it out of anger over the lost fabric business. Then he threw himself onto the Duke's sword, a clear sign he was taking the fall for someone else. The true mastermind was obvious. This smooth victory was thanks in large part to Kaylin's help. He had come to say goodbye. The Count had matters to attend to on the tundra, and they were leaving the next day. Kaylin hoped she would see him off. Alara, still determined to keep her distance, lied that she would be busy, but he saw right through it. "Whatever I did, I hope you'll tell me so I have a chance to apologize and make it right," he said, instead of just pushing me away for no reason. Alara couldn't possibly tell him the truth, that he would become a bloodthirsty tyrant and kill her since it hadn't happened yet. The Kaylin standing before her had saved her. Her wariness suddenly felt a bit unfair. Seeing her struggle, the boy didn't press further, only asking to see her one last time before he left. The next day, as they were preparing to depart, Kaylin kept looking around for her. Just as he was about to give up hope, he heard her voice. "I brought Dr. Alistair back, so I thought I'd stop by to see you off." Even though her excuse was flimsy, Kaylin was overjoyed. He pulled out a necklace he had prepared as a farewell gift. It was made from a rare frost stone found only on the highest peaks of the tundra, which he had mined and crafted himself. Alara noticed Odette glaring at them, and quickly tried to return it, terrified of getting between them. Just then, the butler Hansen rushed over. Alara's mother had suddenly fainted. For his friend's sake, Kaylin immediately begged his father to let Dr. Alistair go back and treat her. Alara was deeply moved. Her fear of the original plot lessened, and she accepted the gift as a symbol of their new friendship. Kaylin beamed, promising to write to her. But behind him, Odette's face twisted with a furious jealousy. Alara rushed back to the manor with the doctor, only to find out her mother had fainted because she was pregnant and a little weak. Alara was so happy she wished out loud for a little brother to inherit the title, so she could just relax and live a carefree life. But then she remembered the original plot. Her mother grew weaker throughout her pregnancy and died from exhaustion shortly after giving birth. Her widowed father then married Kaylin's mother. Strangely, Dr. Alistair said her mother was perfectly healthy now. Was the danger during childbirth? Something was very wrong, and she had to be prepared. She asked Dr. Alistair to take her on as an apprentice, so she could learn medicine and personally care for her mother. A few days later, while trying to make a calming potion by herself, there was a huge explosion. She thought she was done for, but the next second, a cool sensation flowed from the froststone necklace into her body, awakening her magical power. In the original story, Alara never awakened her magic, which only made her tyrant husband value her even less. To awaken it so early in this life was a blessing in disguise. Still, her father was terrified and forbade her from doing any more dangerous experiments, though he eventually gave in to her pouting. When she calmed down, Alara realized something was odd. The fire lizard powder she'd used had been treated and shouldn't have caused such a big explosion. Who was behind this? A few days later, a letter from Liam arrived. When she opened it, an image of the boy appeared, chattering away adorably. "It's my birthday next month. Can you come to my party?" Of course, Alara was happy to go. She hadn't really traveled since coming to this world, and it was a good chance to experience a pleasant rainforest climate. Later, Liam asked about everything that had happened at the duchy, from the plague to the explosion to her mother's pregnancy. Thinking about her mother's fated death, Alara felt that all these events had to be connected. Maybe she could find a clue by investigating the deceased butler, Tristan. His house was near the commercial district, so she used the excuse of buying a birthday present for Liam to go search for clues, hoping nothing had been disturbed. But as soon as she arrived, she ran into Odette. After a few awkward pleasantries, the silence was deafening. She tried to leave, but Odette stopped her. "Have you heard from Kaylin? He said he was going to write to you." Alara understood immediately she was jealous. "He was just being polite because I saved his life," she said. "We haven't been in touch at all." Deciding to play matchmaker and clarify her own position, Alara took off the froststone necklace when Odette mentioned it and handed it over. She thought this would win her some goodwill and push the two of them together. But Odette saw it as an act of charity and resented her for not valuing Kaylin's gift. Soon, Alara reached Tristan's house and started searching for any shred of evidence. She found nothing by nightfall. Just as she was about to leave, a hidden compartment clicked open and a stack of documents slid out. A few days later, Kaylin received a letter from Odette. He looked visibly annoyed and uninterested, until he read a part about Alara. "She gave me the froststone necklace you gave her. She said it was too ugly and she didn't like it, but I love it." Furious, Kaylin crumpled the letter and stormed out. Alara, oblivious, was examining the documents. They were written in a code she couldn't understand. Her father recognized it as a cipher that required a key to translate. The person behind it must have destroyed the key, which is why they hadn't bothered to destroy the letters. He took on the task of decoding them and shared some good news. In a few days, they would be traveling to the Tills Forest for Liam's birthday, and their route would take them through the Frostwind tundra. Alara groaned internally. That meant she would see Kaylin. She had just promised the female rival she would keep her distance, and now she was being forced to see him. She tried to use her mother as an excuse to stay behind, but her father insisted she come. Since she couldn't get out of it, she'd just have to play it by ear. A few days later, they arrived at the Frostwind tundra. Ilara met the Countess Sylvana, Kaelin's mother, and her future stepmother in the original story, for the first time. In the novel, after the Count's mysterious death, she bore the infamy of killing her husband to marry the new king, Ilara's father, and helped Kaelin ascend the throne while pushing for his marriage to Ilara. She was an enigmatic figure. Just then, Kaelin appeared. Ilara greeted him cheerfully, but he gave her the cold shoulder. "What's wrong with you? You look like such a sourpuss." Kaelin ran off in a huff, but Ilara didn't think much of it. Unfortunately, Sylvana saw the exchange and took an immediate dislike to her. That evening, while showing Ilara to her room, Sylvana apologized for her son's behavior, but her words were dripping with sarcasm. "Probably just a little stressed. We've been busy looking for a princess for him to marry. After all, a duchess's daughter is still a bit beneath his station." Ilara caught the jab instantly and played along. "Kaelin doesn't say a word all day, and his face is like a block of ice. Wouldn't a princess freeze to death with him? But I'm just an inexperienced duke's daughter. I'm sure there's some princess out there who won't mind." Sylvana was left seething but couldn't say a thing. The next day, the two kids ran into each other again. Kaelin was waiting for her to apologize, but Ilara acted like she didn't even see him and walked right past. Just as he was about to ask what was wrong, the butler announced, "Lady Liliana and Miss Odette have arrived. The Count requests your presence to greet them." Kaelin couldn't focus on anything they were saying. Even when he was alone with Odette, his mind was elsewhere. "Kaelin, what are you thinking about?" "About Ilara. Is she here too? You care about her that much?" "Why would I care about that rude girl?" Odette, thinking Kaelin disliked Ilara, happily toyed with the necklace. But Kaelin immediately wanted it back. "That necklace doesn't suit you. I'll have the butler find you something more valuable." He practically ran off, not giving her a chance to refuse. Odette chased after him frantically, only to collide with Ilara around a corner. Realizing Ilara hadn't heard their conversation, she put on an act pretending to be very close with Kaelin. "I don't get to visit often, and I'd like to spend some time with my cousin. You won't be joining us, will you?" Ilara got the hint and quickly promised not to interrupt them. She took the library key and happily went off to find a way to decode the letters. That afternoon, Kaelin had no choice but to wander around town with Odette. He answered her curious questions with cold indifference, finding her chatter annoying. But when he spotted Ilara by herself, his mood instantly brightened, and he pulled Odette along to follow her. Kaelin saw Ilara go into the library and followed her in. Odette, not knowing what was going on, picked up a book of poetry from a shelf and started showing off. Literature and art are the true soul of the nobility. Learning things like medicine, as Lady Ilara does, is something only the lower classes do. This infuriated Ilara, who was hiding nearby. "She has to put me down just to flirt? This girl is asking for it." But before she could say anything, Kaelin defended her. "I think you're forgetting that if Ilara only knew about literature and art, I'd be dead." Odette, seeing her cousin was angry, tried to save face but only made things worse. Ilara had heard enough. If that's how it was going to be, she didn't need to keep her promise to stay away. "So what if I'm a rebellious, headstrong duke's daughter? What are you gonna do, hit me?" Odette, still just a child, couldn't handle the provocation. She started crying and ran to tattle to her mother. But in her haste, she accidentally opened the door to the library's forbidden section. The next second, she was ensnared by countless black tentacles. Kaelin rushed forward to save her, but no matter how many times he cut the tentacles, they instantly regenerated, and he was attacked in the process. "It's a magical creature. Normal attacks won't work." Ilara remembered she could use magic, but Odette had her Froststone necklace, and she couldn't activate her powers without it. Kaelin immediately understood the most important thing. Ilara hadn't given the necklace away willingly. His mood instantly lifted. "I'm getting it back," he said, "and this time you can't give it to anyone else." Ilara quickly put the necklace on. Just as a tentacle lunged at her, her magic automatically activated in response to the threat, temporarily saving them. However, triggering the forbidden section had also sealed the library. No one could get out. Odette was terrified, thirsty, and hungry. Ilara took out her last piece of candy and comforted her, saying someone would find them soon. Seeing Odette hesitate, Kaelin grumbled, "You had no problem asking for the necklace. Don't tell me you're too shy to take a piece of candy?" Ilara quickly shushed him, but Odette wasn't grateful at all, thinking she was just being a phony. "So what's in this forbidden section anyway?" Ilara asked. "Just some family histories and rare books," Kaelin replied. "Don't you get it?" Odette chimed in. "These records represent a noble bloodline that has never been broken. Of course they must be preserved." Ilara silently rolled her eyes at the pretentiousness. To her surprise, Kaelin backed her up. "Actually, it's because our ancestors went through a lot of hardships and didn't want people to know," he said, essentially admitting it was a record of their family's embarrassing past. But to pass down valuable lessons to future generations, they wrote it all down. how they survived a forest ambush using the climate and terrain, how they drew water from plants in the desert. The two of them chatted happily, leaving Odette to sulk in the corner. Night fell, and still no one had come for them. Odette finally collapsed from a fever. "We can't just wait here? Is there a secret passage out?" Alara asked. "There's a secret passage in the forbidden section," Kaylin said, "but only family members know where it is. I'm still too young, so my father hasn't told me." An idea sparked in Alara's mind. She arranged the flags on a map according to the routes described in the family history, and sure enough, a hidden exit opened. Odette, lying on the floor, thought she was going to be left behind, but the hand that reached out to help her belonged to the very person she had been targeting, Alara. After being trapped in the library, Alara's clever escape earned her praise from all the parents. She had once again saved Kaylin's life, and in doing so, was given the book she needed to decode the ciphers. Odette, on the other hand, was in a terrible position. Not only was no one concerned about her fever, but her mother also called her a fool. "It's no wonder no one likes you. Now go drink your medicine before you get your brother sick." Standing alone by the window, her spirit crushed, Odette saw Alara happily interacting with her father. The warmth and affection between them was something she had never experienced. A few days later, the group arrived at the Tills forest. The two long-lost friends, Alara and Liam, hugged tightly, talking about how much they missed each other. Kaylin felt a pang of jealousy, but then he got an enthusiastic hug too, which made his skin crawl. Liam proudly introduced them to his mother. "These are the friends I went through life and death with.